Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
You're watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and as I continue my COVID World interview series, this morning I have the privilege of speaking with Gina Gardiner. And she is a national TV commentator at Enlightened Leadership Programme. Gina, thank you for taking time to spend with me on Conversations with Jennylyn, and welcome.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure to be here.
If I pronounced your name incorrectly or your title needs correcting, please correct me, because I got this information off of your LinkedIn.
So my surname would be pronounced Gardiner. So Gina Gardiner. And yes, I am those things, but I'm an empowerment coach and I'm a transformational leadership trainer and a motivational speaker. All of my work is around empowerment and leadership.
And how long have you been doing this? All of your life?
In one form or another, yes, since I started working. So I started off as a teacher. I was very quickly promoted to become a principal, and I was a principal for 20 years. And whilst I was a principal, for the most part, I ran my school from a wheelchair. And the gift in that was I had to develop a unique style of leadership, which is around helping people take radical responsibility for their own performance and a shared responsibility for the performance of their team at the school. Very successful. We were on the best 100 schools in the country list twice during my tenure as head.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I left headship in 2004, and I left headship because of my health. While I was a serving head, I'd worked for the government as an advisor, and I'd worked for the National College of Leadership. And so I thought, well, what do I do now? So since then, I worked with corporates and businesses, always done individual and couple coaching, but I work strategically with developing leadership within businesses and the corporate world.
Very, very impressive.
Thank you.
So much respect for teachers and doctors and nurses, just public service, anybody who is involved in public service, because they always make an impact on lives. And I think it's really a gift, because I could not be a teacher.
I think that it is so much part of who I am, and helping people step into their power is something that I'm absolutely passionate about, because I believe, it's our choice whether we're unhappy, it's our choice whether we live our lives fully or whether we sit and we're a victim to circumstances. That doesn't mean there aren't challenges, but I think it's not the challenge that defines us, it's what we do with it.
Thank you. I always say that. Life is 90% 90% what happens with our 10% what happens to us, and 90% what we do with it. Because life will happen, and we will find ourselves dealing with many different scenarios, and you always have to choose to take the positive course.
I say so. I think the quality of our life is determined by the way in which we think. So if we focus on the negative and what we can't do, life will feel negative. Right. But even in the bleakest moments, and I have to say there have been some pretty dark moments. I've learned to walk twice as an adult. And, if I'd have focused on what I couldn't do, my life would have been very different. But actually, I could go in to school, I could run the school effectively. There were people who could lift and carry. My brain worked, my hands worked, my mouth worked. And one of the huge gifts that's come out of my disability is the unique approach to developing personal empowerment and leadership, which has come out of that real challenge. I'd like to think I would have developed it anyway, but I'm honest enough to know that probably I wouldn't.
Yes, and I am so proud of you and all the people like you who have challenges, but who have not let it stop them from living a full life, from saying, this is my life and the sky is the limit, I have the freedom to do what I can do with what I can do and do. And that's how I've always been also. Now, are you comfortable
I'm very comfortable, thank you.
discussing your disability?
No problem.
Okay,
No problem at all.
that's why you're in a wheelchair. Let us share with us, you know, your disability and your challenges that you.
I was fully fit and used to bounce around like, you know, have loads of energy until I went skiing 6 months after I was promoted to be a deputy principal. And I'd had new skis for Christmas, and in those days the fashion was to have the skis as long as possible. I was an experienced skier, and the guy in the shop convinced me to buy skis that were 10 centimeters longer than I was used to. And so for the week that we were away in St. Anton in Italy, I proceeded to cross those last 10 centimeters and kept falling. So on the Thursday, I said to my friends, look, tomorrow morning I'm going to go and ski by myself. I'm going to get my confidence back. I'll join you for lunch. And they came, we met for lunch, and they said, we found this fabulous new run. Come and join us. So off we went. It was a beautiful day, very sunny. Went off in the chairlift, and I followed them, and they went round the corner, and you didn't need to be a rocket scientist to actually recognize they weren't where they thought they were going to be. And instead of being on the beautiful red run that they had found, we were on the Schindlergratz, which is the most difficult black run in St. Anton, which was very steep, very long, and full of moguls. Now, for those who don't know what a mogul is, it's where the snow has been carved out by the wind and the weather. And you can get moguls which are like cobblestones, you know, just a couple of inches. Wow. But these are 6-foot monsters. And there was nowhere to turn other than pivoting on the top of the mogul and sliding down. So I did about the first third, and then I fell because I didn't turn in time, and I went off into the powder snow. And it took me ages to retrieve my ski and ski down to where my friends were waiting for me, each of them sitting on a mogul, like an elf sitting on a mushroom. So I took my skis off, and I sat and joined them on my own mogul. But as I say, it was a very hot day, and the mogul gave way, and I fell, I'm told, between 150 and 200 feet.
Oh my goodness. Thank God you're alive.
Well, I think I was very lucky. I think partly because I had taken my skis off, partly because I'd knocked myself out, so I was floppy. But I also believe that there was a bigger plan for me, and part of that was that actually the disability created opportunities for me to learn and to develop things in a way that I wouldn't have done. Now, we travelled home the next day, and I was off school for a little while, but I got back to school and then went skiing with the borough ski party. I was the deputy leader. But as the week went on, I became more like Quasimodo. And on the last evening, I said to my colleagues, I've just got to go and lie down. I wasn't in my room for very long before I discovered I'd become paralysed down one side. I didn't want to.
And how long was this after the fall? How long was it?
5 or 6 weeks.
And you had no symptoms in between? You weren't feeling pain? Or...
I'd had a bad concussion, and I'd trapped a nerve in my neck. And I wasn't right, but I'd been given the okay to go skiing because we had a medic with us. And what they think happened is that in the initial accident, the vertebrae had squashed the spinal cord and then jumped back. You know, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
I've got it's hay fever time. But fortunately, it didn't sever the spinal cord. But when I started to ski on the second trip, they think that it irritated the spinal cord and that it had swollen and then cut off the supply to the nerves. So I was hospitalised. But I have to say, from the accident on, I've struggled with fatigue and with pain. But I was back to school as soon as I could, and that was May. Got to the school summer holidays, and I'd just been doing school and sleeping really. And 10 days into the school holiday, there was a phone call from my principal's wife. She was hysterical. She'd just found him dead in bed. He'd had a heart attack. So the holiday was taken up with helping her with the funeral, letting the staff, the parents, the local authority know. And from that day, I was acting principal, and within 3 months, I was the permanent principal.
How many years ago was that?
This is 1983.
My goodness, wow.
So a long time. And over the years, my mobility deteriorated. I started to use a wheelchair to get round school because it was a big site, but not in the classrooms and the offices, in 1987. And then in 96, I sneezed and I ruptured a disc, and I had failed back surgery and became wheelchair bound. It took me 18 months to walk to the end of my very little garden. And then 3 months later, I was sick and I ruptured a second disc. Again, failed back surgery syndrome. So completely wheelchair bound until 2004, when I had a spinal stimulator fitted. And it took a very long time to build my mobility. So today, and that's 16 years later, I still use a wheelchair to go into town or to go travelling, but I don't need to use a wheelchair in the house or garden. And I can walk short distances now. So if we go to a restaurant, then I can walk from the car park into the restaurant, that sort of thing. So it's been quite a mission, really. Yeah. And what it taught me is if you focus on what you can't do, you're very limited. Yeah, if you focus on what you can do, then the world is a very different place.
So true. Now, do you think that your back became vulnerable after the fall, which is why you were sneezing and messing up your back just by sneezing?
I think there was obviously a weakness there, and then I think because my posture was poor because I didn't have the strength, I think that contributed to it. But ultimately, given my capacity into physical capacity, I was vulnerable because I'm not able to exercise. I'm not able to strengthen those muscles in a way that perhaps you would do otherwise. Yeah. But it's not stopped me doing anything. It's stopped me doing some things, but it's not stopped me living my life fully.
I didn't think for 1 second.
But, even so, I'd like to share, if I may, with your listeners,
sure,
a situation that was life-changing for me, and in a very good way. So I'd been in a wheelchair since 1987, and I want to fast forward now to 2006. I'd left headship, being a principal. I was working for myself, and I decided that I wanted to do some training in NLP. I was already a qualified coach, and I went off to do some training, and I did my practitioner, my master practitioner, and I did NLP coaching, all with the same organisation. So I made a decision that I was going to go and watch as many different people using NLP as I could. And I ended up going to see Tony Robbins, who I'm sure many of your listeners or viewers are familiar with.
Yeah.
Now, I went fairly cynically thinking, big man, big personality, lots of hype. I'm not sure how good this is going to be. And I arrived at the Excel Centre in London, which is a big conference centre. There were 10,000 people on the course. 10,000 people. Okay. And in the first morning, he was talking about a program that he was going to be running in California. And I completely dismissed it because I didn't have a travel wheelchair. And I thought, well, how will I manage on my own? Now, bearing in mind that for the government, I was going all over the country working with other schools. But I always had a taxi driver pick me up from home, deliver me, collect me and bring me home. So the thought of traveling on my own by air to California to go to this course, I just dismissed it and said, no, I can't do that. That evening we did the fire walk. And for those who aren't familiar with it, you walk over hot coals in bare feet. And if you're in the right mindset, you don't get burnt. Please don't try this at home. Anybody who's listening, don't try it at home.
even try it with Tony Robbins.
So at that time, this is by this time we're well into 2006. I can walk probably 4 or 5 steps unaided, and I can walk a little bit further with help. So I was thrilled to complete the fire walk. And as they helped me to turn around and sit into my wheelchair, the guy behind me, who I have no idea who he is, he was a double amputee. He had no legs below the knee. And he tipped himself up onto his hands, and he walked those hot coals on his hands. I was gobsmacked. And I thought in that moment, if he can do that, then I'm self-limiting. So I booked my flight and my ticket for the course in California that night. I went on the course. Since then, did all Tony Robbins stuff, became a senior leader. I've traveled all over the world, speaking, working, and on holiday. I am so thankful to that man. And as I say, I have no idea who he is, but he changed my life. Why? Because he taught me that even though, as far as everybody else was concerned, you know, I was challenging myself incredibly, what I recognized is that the only thing that limits us is us.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you. We can do so much more than we give ourselves credit for. And I always say one of the biggest demotivators in life is fear.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. The thing is, people think that successful people don't feel fear. It's rubbish. They feel the fear and they still do it. And that fear, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? When you step out or go to step out of your comfort zone, it feels unfamiliar. It feels scary. But very quickly, your comfort zone expands and it stops feeling scary, doesn't it?
It does.
The more you do it, the easier it gets.
I've pushed myself and done so many things that people were saying to me, why are you wasting your time? It's not making money. And that's something that bothers me with this world. If things aren't making money, people discredit them. And
It depends on your value system, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what you define as abundance.
Yeah.
And, you know, they say there's no pockets in shrouds. You can have money but be lonely. You can have money but be unhappy. And in my experience, many clients that I've worked with have all the trappings of success, but don't feel fulfilled.
Thank you very much. And this is why I do what I do, because if God puts the desire in my heart, or if I feel that I need to do something, I don't care what anyone, as a matter of fact, a lot of times I don't discuss it, I do it, and then they find out. Because there's so many naysayers who don't try. And like you, I love your attitude. You're so inspiring. Like
Thank you.
saw this man and you're like, if he's doing that, I have my legs, and you did it, and look how it's changed your life.
And for anybody, you know, the clients that I work with, one of the things about working, so I work with clients one-on-one, okay? I also do the business and leadership development, but with one-on-one clients particularly, you're giving them a different perspective on life, giving them an understanding that it's up to you to give yourself permission to thrive. You know, taking radical responsibility for your own emotional well-being means that you don't have to put up with, you know, I can't be happy if he's not making me happy, or I can't, you know, somebody's made me angry. Well, they can't make you angry unless you give them permission to.
Exactly.
So by taking radical responsibility for your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, you take yourself out of victim mode, and you can then put yourself in hero mode. So if you're going to write your own life story, at least give yourself a good part.
I love it. I really do. Now, tell me how you got started in television.
Well, I've done bits of television, and I went over to Los Angeles the year before last to make a TV series for my work. And so there's a Genuinely You TV series that anybody who wants, if they go onto the website, they can sign up for that for free. And since then, I've been invited to go on to different things in order to to be a guest. I'm about to become a commentator on a TV show in America. And it's because I think people have recognized partly my attitude to life, and the fact that I have a huge wealth of experience in terms of personal development and leadership. And so the invites started off very slowly, but they're building up.
Well, you are to be commended for so many reasons. You are such an inspiration. When I see people sitting around saying they're bored and they've got their eyes, arms, legs, and brains, I just look and wonder, what do you mean you're bored? So when I hear someone like you, who life has been shoving, like they say, a ton of lemons, and you keep making lemonade and adding vanilla and adding brandy and different flavors of lemonade, I love that. I just love people like you.
But can I just suggest, let me, I think if I demonstrate for me the difference. 4 days after coming out of hospital for spinal surgery, I was back at school, all right? 4 days. Now, some might say I was stupid, and I accept that that may be the case. But if I was at home, if somebody hadn't filled the kettle and left out a cup, I couldn't make a cup of tea. I had daytime television and reading. Doesn't do it for me. Or the taxi could pick me up, my site manager would help me into school, my secretary and staff were there to help me. My brain worked, my eyes worked, my mouth patently works, my hands work. I could run my school really effectively, or I could be at home and focus on what? Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that there are many people for whom, you know, they are ill or disabled and the opportunity to do what I did isn't open to them. If I'd been a class teacher, I couldn't have done it. But the circumstances were there, so I could, and I chose to. But I chose to because the alternative was awful, as far as I was concerned. So I chose to do what worked. And I think part of it is my upbringing. If ever you said you were bored or fed up when I was a child, my parents would say, go and do something useful. Go and do something that's going to help someone else. And I think that that's a really good mantra. So if you don't know what to do with yourself, get out there and do some voluntary work, or, you know, go and help someone, even if it's in a very small way. You'll feel good and the other person will feel better too.
Well, since you are someone who sees the glass as half full,
yep,
instead of half empty, what would you say drives you, and what have you found the most challenging that made you, for 1 minute, ponder if the glass is half empty? Have you ever had one of those moments?
Of course. Everybody has those moments. And I don't want you to think that I'm Pollyanna, that there aren't days when, you know, I'm fed up. And there've been really, really dark days, and particularly when I became wheelchair bound for the second time. It seemed so much more challenging than the first time, because 18 months to walk, I suppose, 40 feet, and then back to square one, only worse. And it was pretty dark. I'm fortunate that by nature I am a positive person. That's the first thing. And you can train yourself to be positive. And I can teach a couple of techniques if you'd like those techniques. But I think for me, the drive always has been a sense of purpose. If I can make a positive difference, and to start with, it was to the children and the staff in my school and the parents in the community. And since I left being a principal, it was working with my individual clients and my business clients. And one of the reasons I set up the new business, Genuinely You, 2 years ago, was this drive, this sense that I needed to be reaching more people. That there was so much unhappiness, so much anxiety and depression that didn't need to be that way. And I, from my work with people and from my research, you know, the two things that I think make the difference are relationships, and every relationship has to start with you. You're the common denominator you take into every moment of every day in your life. And so, and every relationship you have is a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. So, being able to help people have a great relationship with themselves and therefore with others, I think is a really important thing. And the other thing is that, in the UK, half the prescriptions, over half in fact now, are for antidepressants. And many people cite work as a major reason, not the only one, but a major one. And I think the quality of leadership is just so poor in so many places. And so over a period of time, it seemed so relevant for me to use the expertise that I had developed to help people deal with their beliefs about themselves and the world, to give them a perspective which was a positive one, and to give them the tools to deal with those crappy days when everything is difficult, and to help leaders develop an enlightened way of leading with integrity, with compassion, and with the courage to do what's right rather than what's expedient. And so that sense of drive of purpose became more and more uncomfortable until I started to do something about it.
Are you a mother?
Am I what, sorry?
Are you a mother?
No. No, the ski accident happened when I was 28, and school pretty well took everything that I'd got. And I always had 500 children.
I was going to say, maybe you didn't give birth to children, but I'm sure you've been a mother to many.
And I have 8 godchildren.
There you go.
Because 8 godchildren and 8 nieces and nephews now. And 5 grandnieces and nephews. So there's plenty of children in my life.
So as a school teacher who's had an injury and a public servant who is constantly leading and enlightening, when you have dark moments, because you're human and the most perfect person will encounter a situation that takes them out of the light, how long do you allow yourself to fester or to deal with being out of your element?
It's a really interesting question.
For a long time, long periods?
No. I would say it would be very, very unusual that I hadn't got myself sorted in the day. And if not, it would be, at the very most, it would be a couple. Most times it's a couple of hours. And there's 2 things that I think make the difference. One is to get on and do something that is useful. And I'm very blessed because I love what I do. So it's not a chore. But to go and focus on doing something for somebody else, even if it's to make a phone call, not to moan, but a phone call to say to somebody, how you doing? What you been up to? I collect gratitudes on a regular basis, going through the day, actively looking for things to be grateful for. So my day starts with being grateful for great plumbing and a hot shower. And a nice cup of tea. My cat makes me laugh. The fact I have a comfortable home, that somebody rings during the day and says hi, or somebody gives me a hug, pre-COVID, of course. And nature and my garden is gives me a great sense of gratitude. And then through the day, I collect those. And of course, you can't collect a gratitude if you're not in the moment.
Exactly.
And if you're in the moment, you can't be worrying about what's gone on, and you can't be anxious about what's to come.
Exactly.
But then, just before I go to sleep, I scan the day, go scan all of my gratitudes, and I choose 5, which means I go to sleep on a really positive note. So even if it's been a rubbish day, and there are days when even now, pain is a big issue, but you can still be grateful for all of those things. You can still enjoy the good things in life, even when the day is dark. There are things, and the knowledge that it too will pass, that tomorrow will be a new day, that even if it's cloudy and rainy, the sun is up there. And I remind myself of those things. And I clear my energy, I ground myself, and then I'll go and do something that makes me laugh.
I love it. And you know, I would be remiss if we didn't discuss a little bit about COVID-19 and how it's
Yep.
affecting you. So tell me how you are coping with it.
So I've now been in my house for Saturday will be 7.5 weeks. I've been out twice to go and buy food. Fortunately, I've got a good stock cupboard. So my paid business has diminished hugely. So what I've been doing is I've been concentrating on talking to people like yourself. I just launched the Enlightened Leadership Programme the month before this all happened. So it's a difficult time to launch a leadership program. The paradox, of course, if people were could get going on it, it would mean that they would be so much more resourced when this is all over. But I've been running webinars for people on managing personally and business-wise with COVID. And for example, this week I've done 2 webinars on my 10 top strategies for managing COVID. I've been writing lots of content. I've been working on my marketing strategy, got a big LinkedIn campaign going. And I've actually kept very busy. I've also kept in contact with my clients. And the reason my paid business has disappeared is that every single one of my business clients at the moment, they've had to close down their business. Mm-hmm. And my coaching clients, many of them have been furloughed or laid off. So I'm still talking to them and supporting them, but I recognize that they haven't got an income. And I'm using the time. I've been looking for affiliates, and what I've been doing is my affiliate program has expanded so that when we're ready to go after COVID, then I am hopeful that things will explode and go very well.
Well, we're almost out of time. And is it okay to ask you, you mentioned your COVID top 10 coping principles. Is it okay to share those with us?
I can share that. We haven't got time to expand,
okay.
But mindset would be number 1. You know, if you are focusing on all the negativity, I'd say you're going to be in real trouble. Okay. So what can you do? These, just off the top of my head, one is that relationships are really important. Within your family, remember that people are likely to be under pressure, as are you. So be tolerant and forgiving. But keep in touch with your clients, your customers, not to sell to them, but to say, how are you doing? Yes. Because afterwards, if you've taken a true interest in them, they're going to come to you, aren't they, first, rather than if you've not had any contact with them, that they'll just have a look at and see who's around. So making meaningful contact with those people. Networking, there's lots of networking going on. Making contact with people that you may want to collaborate with, or looking for opportunities to make contact and a relationship with new clients, because it's relationship that sells programs or sells products. It's people. Self-care, really important. You know, look after yourself. Don't be indulgent, but do take care and make sure that you are eating well, that you are getting some exercise, that you are giving yourself, doing something that fills you up. Use technology. And if you're a business person, you know, part of this is be strategic. Yeah. And by being strategic, I mean a number of things. There are those who are blind optimists. They think everything's going to be fine and they just do the ostrich. That's not what I mean when I talk about thinking positively. At the other end of the scale, you've got the pessimists who think everything's going to go wrong. What you want to be is an informed optimist. Look at the information and then be strategic. Plan for the worst, plan for the best, and plan for, well, if this happens, maybe I'll do that. If this happens, maybe I'll do that. Engage your staff. Talk to them. If you've got a relationship with your staff which is based on trust and integrity and compassion, they will want to work with you in order to find a way out of this. And you've got the combined wisdom, enthusiasms, expertise, and so on of everybody there. So it makes sense to engage with them. Be strategic about the use of technology. You know, if you're running an online course, then you need to be even more prepared than if you're running a course or a meeting face to face. Be careful that you look professional. I was watching something last week, and there was a guy, it was a networking meeting, there was a guy in bed with his shirt open, hairy chest. And you think to yourself, when this is all over and he comes back to the network suited and booted, everybody on that meeting isn't going to see him suited and booted. They're going to see him, that image of him in bed, bearing his chest, and looking a bit like a slob, really. You know, I was at another meeting, and instead of a lovely background like you have, you could see all the washing on the radiator. You know, so be mindful. You know, practice with the technology, and even then things can go wrong. But be very, very well practiced about what you're going to do and have contingency plans. And I think, you know, with all of this, it is about be prepared. You know, change is something many people struggle with, and it's hot wired into us as cavemen and women to be wary of change. But I don't think we're ever going to go back to the same norm.
No, we won't. I agree.
And so those people who are open-minded, who are creative, and who start preparing now, whether you're somebody who works for yourself, or whether you've got your own business, or whether you work for a bigger company, I think we're all going to be prepared, have to be prepared to do things differently. And one of the things that's lovely about the UK, I don't know about the States, is the level of kindness and care of one another has become so much better. People are taking this time to reflect upon their values. Go back to the abundance thing. What's really important to you?
Thank you so much. We've run out of time. I never have enough time for these inspiring interviews. You were wonderful. I love your energy and your optimism. I can tell you're a great leader. I think every student who's gone through the school system with you as their principal, I'm sure is doing very well, unless they've chosen otherwise. Thank you so much for all the value you add to people's lives. Please continue to take care of yourself, stay COVID-free, and I will be in touch with you. I still doing more segments in the future.
Thank you very much. And if people want to know more, go to genuinely-you.com, and they can find all of the things that I do there.
Gina, thank you so much. And thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. When a conversation is all you need to be inspired, like this one I've just had with Gina.